Laura, if you'll let us know when we're live streaming on YouTube, that would be fantastic. Danielle, can you hear everybody?
I can. Thank you.
Ooh, your audio is fabulous.
Well, thank you.
Recording.
All right, thank you. So Tim, did you happen to walk over to the admin building and see if anyone showed up?
I have not. We had activities here and parents and everything, so I have not been over to the board.
Because I sent Ed an email and said if they needed to if he needed to use the school's internet to get a reliable connection to go over there.
Yeah.
All right. So I'll call this meeting to order at 6:32 p.m. on February 17th, 2021. Let's recite the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can I get a roll call, please, sir? If you're talking, you're muted.
Ms. Combs.
Here, present at my home at 20375 Wigwam Road.
Mr. Ricks.
Present electronically here in Westminster, Colorado.
Mr. Smith, present at my home electronically. Mr. Swayze.
Absent without notice.
Mr. Underwood.
Present at my home. All right. I will say that there is someone logged on under the name of Danielle Combs that is muted. Based
That's
on
me.
the.
I have to use the microphone on my.
Oh, got it. Got it. Sorry.
But I'm using the camera on my laptop.
Okay. Yeah, mute that other thing. All right, that brings us to modification of approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to modify or approve the agenda?
I'd like to move to modify the agenda. Discussion item 8.3 is listed as 2021 annual audit update, and it should be 8.3 2019 to 2020 annual audit update.
All right, do I have a second? I'll go ahead and second, Mr. Smith.
Looks like Ms. Combs came in.
Oh. Do we have any other motions to modify or approve the agenda? All right. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs.
Aye.
Mr. Ricks.
Aye.
Mr. Smith. Aye. Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. The agenda is approved. All right. Brings us to 4.0, open forum. Is anybody signed up for open forum? I will go check here in an instant. Board meeting packets, public. All right, no one signed up to speak under open forum. Brings us to 5.0 consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs. Ms. Combs.
Oh, sorry. Aye.
Mr. Ricks.
Aye.
Mr. Smith. Aye. Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. Brings us to board superintendent comments. We'll go with Mrs. Combs first. Mrs. Combs, your comments.
I don't have any tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Rickster.
I just wanted to say thank you to everyone involved in doing what they can to get the sports back in action. There's been a lot of work being done. For those of the people that did read Mr. Williams' update, there's a lot behind the scenes that's happening to make this all happen between the different schools. And that's from basketball to cheer. Everyone's doing their part to make it a safe but yet a fun opportunity. Hopefully we can get that back eventually at the junior high. But right now at the high school, it's been nice to see it again. So I just want to say thank you to parents, coaches, staff, Chuck, everyone that's involved in making that happen.
Awesome, thank you. Mr. Smith, sir.
Yes, I just want to thank all the staff that's involved in keeping the kids safe and making sure that we do everything we can so that we are able to actually have school and have it in person as we are, because as those of you that watch the news or watch TV or read a little bit know, that that's one of the biggest contentions right now across the country is kids aren't in school and people want them. But thanks to all your hard work, our kids are in school doing what they should do. So thank you very much.
So, Mr. Smith, it appears that Mr. Swayze has joined. Mr. Swayze, do you have any comments, sir?
I've been here the whole time, just I wasn't brought up.
Yeah, I saw that.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
I do have some comments. I want to apologize to the community because my Wi-Fi has been down and I've been having a hard time getting any emails or anything that they've been trying to talk to me. It's been down for quite a while. And I want to make sure they understand that I'm not ignoring you. If you have a problem, call my phones if I don't respond on an email or a text. Either one, call me. My phones are working. That is it.
All right, thank you, sir. I only have one comment, and that is related to a situation that occurred prior to the January board meeting. Apparently, someone and we could find out who it was, but it would take lots of time and probably some money. But someone went on to our website and signed up someone else to speak at the January board meeting. And the only thing I really have to say about that is that if it happens again, we're just going to shut down that avenue for people to sign up to speak at the board meeting, and we'll go back to the old paper rule. Okay, so you're going to have to show up in person, regardless of COVID or weather, and you're going to have to sign up on a piece of paper. You know, there are things that we could do to secure that, but you know what? We're supposed to be honest, decent, hardworking adults, and that kind of nonsense just shouldn't ever happen. And if it happens again, then we're just going to be done with trying to facilitate outside of the normal process for people to sign up to speak for open forum. So if you know who it was, tell them. They're going to ruin it for everybody. We'll talk about website hosting migrations and security issues a little bit later. And this is definitely part of the motivation behind that. But quite frankly, whoever this was, your childish nonsense must cease. All right. So my other comment is apologize for the late notice to everybody that we moved the board meeting to online and encouraging everybody to participate electronically. It's just when they called for an early release at Peterson Air Force Base at 2 p.m. and that's where I work. And I left base and started heading south. I was basically driving in whiteout conditions. And I knew that eventually, sooner or later, and according to the weather forecast, that kind of weather was going to hit Hanover 9 p.m. or so. And I didn't want to ask any staff members or any community members who want to participate in this meeting to have to drive in that weather. So I made the call.
So
sir.
On that note, we can see that Mr. McNerney is in his office at the high school with his background. If the weather conditions continue to worsen, I assume it is permissible for him to leave the meeting early. Is that correct? Due to safety concerns.
Absolutely.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we take the right
with him earlier in the day to that effect. And he gets to make his own personal safety calls to when he leaves.
Good deal. I just want to make sure that
up and walks out right now, there will be no qualms about that whatsoever.
Good deal. I just want to ensure the safety. So
yep.
Thank you, Paul.
All right, so that brings us, that brings us to superintendent comments. Great segue, sir.
Very good. I'm going to just say thank you, everybody. You know, last in the January board meeting, we started a happy note trend. So I'm going to continue that.
Awesome.
Happy note number 1, school safe. Mr. Smith, you mentioned safety of our kids and our staff and blah, blah, blah. We are not going to blah, blah, blah. We're going to say, guess what we did? In July, I got to join us in a school safe program. It's a grant that was an affiliation of the BOCES. And as a result, it came to fruition. We now have additional repeaters and almost 10 radios that I'm planning on getting a repeater put over at PHE. Motorola, they are police and first responder compatible, 25-mile capability and beyond. But we got our radios. We got repeaters on the administrative building and our building. I've got to get one for PHE. As soon as I get funding lookouts for March, we are going to be fully able to communicate the way the rest of the world does in a safety tone. I was so pleased. They came out February 2, 3, 4 and did all the work, but this is for our bus drivers, for the schools, and Lord forbid something happens, we are good to go from a safety lens. So that's safety note number 1. Safety note number 2 is the ESSER2 app is now available, and Ms. Petrakaitis and I will be filling this out for almost $219,000, and I will be briefing the board and the public about how that money is going to work. We've got some super exciting stuff that this is, it's exciting, and I'll stop with that. But that grant is available and we're going to get going on it. We've been waiting a month or 2 for that. Athletics, you already mentioned, and we talk, and I just have to pay kudos to Mr. Williams and all his work with what he's doing and making sure we're safe. And we're the bad guys for a little bit, but we're still in school, and that's the only way. He and I, when we do our cabinet meetings weekly, it's hard. There's just bloody no way of saying it, but it's hard. But he and I both say, you know what? You look at him and say, we're still in school. And that's what we're going to continue to do. So we are hoping the trends are still going down, and I'm watching that. So we're looking potentially at this weekend, getting visitors in. We just got to be careful. So we're going the right way. And Paul, you said the same thing. We're doing it the right way. It's frustrating, but we're going the right way. Cameras are working. Pixelot system's working. Happy note number 4, Hunter Lynch.
Hold on, I have an alibi here, sir.
You have an alibi?
Yeah, which means I want to interrupt you.
Okay.
So for Valentine's Day, my wife purchased me an annual subscription to the school's athletics transmission website.
Awesome. Awesome. It's and so have you got to use it yet?
I have not. Last Friday, I attempted to log on during the game, and the system wasn't working active setup or whatever. So,
Paul, you've used it, right? I know you and Shauna use it.
Yeah, I've used it. It's actually pretty easy to navigate.
maybe
Watch
I
it on
wasn't
my phone.
navigating it correctly.
Yeah, if you just follow the link, I can send you a link to click on, and then you just type in your information and you're good to go. Now on this last game, I believe Pikes Peak Christian was not part of the system, but I was able to find the game on YouTube. So
Okay.
a lot of it, if they're not signed up in the program, you can go to the school's Facebook page. If they don't have that, then just look up the school's webpage. So that's where they directed me, was on the actual Pikes Peak Christian webpage. So
Awesome.
there.
We're getting there. Hang in there. Happy note number 4 is we have an 8th grade student with a rating of excellent for his clarinet performance in the Chassa Solo Ensemble Festival that recently took place. There is only one higher rating, superior, and in a 5-category system. So I just want to make public acknowledgement. That's awesome stuff in my opinion. And I'm hoping, I said to Hunter, I'm going to do this, and he told me no, but I'll deal with him tomorrow. He can be mad. We did our SCAP visit today, and I will just tell you, I'm going to be giving more on this as we get more feedback, but we got feedback by end of day today at 4. And I gotta say to Hornet Nation Cabinet, to our teachers, to our kids, good Lord, and to parents, they are what is making this community what it is. It's absolutely our feedback today. I could read to you, but I won't. I'll save it for March. It's just, we have grown so much in 7 months, according to the reviewers today. They are so proud of our work, and the Blueberry on the Prairie got happy results. I'm just going to say that. Okay. They even knows it. We did a lot of videos. The kids did some videos, and we put a show on for them for the good that Hanover is doing with our kids, faculty, and staff. Just, it was a great show. So you need to know more on that coming up. Happy note number 6 is our COVID update. We talked a little bit. We are pushing, depending if you go R Factor or El Paso Health, we're at 5% for positivity or lower, which is where we want to be. Incidence rates are dropping consistently. I think today it was 112. You got to remember, December 10th, it was almost 1,300. That's how much it's changed in 2 months, because people are doing the right thing. And I'm part of that. You're part of that. But we got to say, don't quit yet. Don't quit yet. Keep on the good stuff. And then happy note number 7 is vaccination update. We started that for the district Saturday at the World Arena. And so we got people signing up and getting vaccinated, and it's just going the right way. So that's my share.
Any alibis for any board members? No.
No,
Okay.
I did see in the chat for the people in the community who didn't see it that the reason why you couldn't see the Cripple Creek is they didn't have it set up on their end. So
Yeah.
if you're wondering.
Okay, thank you, sir. That brings us to 7.0 DAC report to the board. I don't have privileges to elevate Ms. Goggin. Board assistant, can you elevate Ms. Goggin or ask her to unmute? Thank you. Ms. Goggin, please go ahead with your report.
So this last meeting was a little bit different from how we've done them. Tim was nice enough to sit with me and kind of help me out in transitioning. So it was the first meeting that was run by myself. We started to reflect the way that we do it, kind of to follow suit with the board meeting. We will, this month, I think it's next week, I'm going to attend a DAC meeting for District 11, just to see how theirs runs, kind of what things they touch on and what they don't. We also decided any of the superintendent information, obviously Tim will recap since he's much better versed for that. This month, though, we did vote on the location for our meetings. So we do want to go back to alternating between schools so that we can get more parent engagement or community engagement. We'll also keep the online meetings open to help have that option for others. The next meeting, we will vote on what that schedule looks like, though, so that we can put that down on paper for them. Attendance is open to everybody. So we'll do a better job of kind of communicating that to people to let them know. And then we were just clarified. So the DAC members will be the ones that do any voting if that's something that we have brought up. We did discuss a little bit about the idea of having a board member or the board secretary involved at every meeting. We did decide to not do that unless we had something that we wanted discussed with you guys or had questions, comments, concerns. We just want to keep an open environment so that we can get more people to kind of join and let us know, good, bad, otherwise, how they're feeling about what's going on in our district. We did have some updates from each school. So Prairie Heights has started a reward incentive with their students. So they do weekly and monthly drawings. The monthly drawing winners receive bikes. The cool part about it is that some of the students who have won those bikes have donated them back to other students that don't have one. So that was pretty cool to see. Student council sold treats for Valentine's Day this year. Yearbooks are on sale. There's a drawing for parents and families when they purchase those. And the PHE enrollment has gone up to 122 students. The junior senior high school had a back to school bash, which went over really well with students. They also had a drawing for throwing pies at staff. So that was fun to hear about. And then we were really encouraging Lindsay to keep telling us about it. So there's a lot of us that have only kids in the elementary side. So we'd love to hear more about what happens at the high schools as well. And then lastly, just as Tim touched on, there was the SCAP visit today, and the board assistant, she's going to help us get set up so we can have audio recordings of our minutes, so that will be open to people as well. She also was able to get us emails, so that way if people want to get in contact with us, they do have that option. That's all I got.
You broke up there for a second. Ms. Goggin, are you done?
I am, I'm sorry.
Okay, no, that's fine. We are at the mercy of internet connectivity. It's a horrible mercy to be at, but it is the reality of the world. Okay, any questions for the DAC? Okay, hearing none,
No
that brings,
I just
Go
want to
ahead.
say thank you for putting together the report, and she did great. So thanks for the information.
and
I'll
for
make
those
sure
of
you
you that
have
are
it every
not aware, oh, I'm sorry, Emily, go ahead. I stepped on you, Emily.
No, it's okay. I was letting Danielle know. I'll make sure that you guys get it every month so it's consistent.
Yeah. So I observed the DAC meeting and, really well. So I think we're doing good there. That brings us to 8.1, 2018 Comprehensive Policy Review Reconciliation. So for those of you that were around and remember, we did this massive comprehensive policy review a couple of years ago. And for one reason or another, there were several policies that were either tabled and never brought back, or a large number of policies that never even made it up for review. So the board secretary and his assistant did reconciliation of those, and there are, I'd have to do math, 5, 37, and 3, so 45 policies to close out that policy review that are on the table for first read this evening. I have annotated about 9 policies that I think we actually need to discuss. First one on my list is GBGD. That concerns workers' compensation. This is not a policy that we've had in place before. And in the CASB Core Policy Manual, there's a note, and it says one of the following options may be included at the board's discretion. And option 1 says that allows employees to supplement their indemnity payments with accrued leave. And another option prohibits employees from indemnity payments with accrued leave. And then, of course, there's always the option of including neither. Thoughts?
Well, there was a grammatical error that I saw in reading that policy.
Okay.
Just my OCD. I mean, what it says. It says to the extent that the indemnity payment is less than an employee's weekly wage or equivalent. Instead of putting the less than first, it should read to the extent that the indemnity payment is equivalent to or less than an employee's weekly wage. I know that's just grammar, but
Okay.
Board of Education policy, the grammar should be correct.
I have no objection to that. So if you would, you go into the Word document and make your specific red line recommendations and forward them on to the board assistant. If we choose that option, we'll have that in the record. But I guess the real question on the table is, are we choosing option 1, option 2, or neither option?
So I like option 1 because that gives it the opportunity for the staff member to, in the HR world, it's called made whole, because workers' comp is just a base. It's a percentage of your salary, typically 66%. And option 1 allows that staff member to be made whole using their own leave so that they don't end up losing money when they've actually been hurt on the job. And I think that's the fairest one, and I think that's the right one to do, because they're hurt on the job. Their paycheck, which is their livelihood, should not suffer when it was a on-the-job injury.
Okay. I don't necessarily disagree with that. Anybody have any other input?
I mean, I agree they should not suffer. Would it not be feasible to maybe put these options out on a survey to the staff that works for the district and maybe go with a majority thought on this? I mean, this is their livelihood. It'd be nice if maybe we could get some input from them. Just thinking out loud here.
Mr. McNerney, your thoughts on that? You're muted, sir.
I would concur.
Okay.
It is. I think Paul makes a good point. Let's get some feedback, as it is. It does. Yeah. Just let's get some feedback. I would agree.
Okay. So, Mr. Smith, we are not going to. If you'll have to annotate this so we don't lose track of this. GBGD is not going to be brought forward next month for second read, as we are going to survey district employees as to their preference or their
So annotated
inputs. All right, thank you. Next policy that I have annotated is GCQEA, and that relates to early retirement, I believe. It does, voluntary early retirement. And what the policy suggests is that we choose one of three options where we provide a dollar figure that's to be paid for early retirement to all eligible employees, or a percent of the salary, or a certain dollar figure per annum of service to the district. I have no experience in this area, so I yield to anyone's thoughts, inputs, or comments. I like perhaps maybe the survey idea again on this one.
That's kind of what I was thinking too. I didn't want to keep kicking on that, but again, it's their retirement. I feel it's fair as a board to give that opportunity to the employees of the district.
I agree. I like kicking it back to them as well to see where they stand from their perspective.
Any other inputs on this?
My input would be that it's an optional policy and we don't have it. I mean, I firmly believe that, I'd love to keep a good teacher, a good staff member around as long as they can go. I don't necessarily, as long as they can continue to teach, I don't necessarily want to encourage them to leave early. And also we need to do some looking into how much effort is required on the district, because this would impact their para. And does para totally run it, or is the district running it? Because it talks about a percentage of a salary, and how would this impact their para and our participation in that? And by participation, I don't mean us paying into para. I just mean our participation with para as gatekeepers to the system. It might become more administratively burdensome than it actually is worthwhile for a district our size.
And that's where, Dwight, I would concur. I don't know if Miss Petrikaitis, that's something I'd like to speak with her about, is ramifications and expense or intrusion thereof, but how we can work in partnership with that for what's best.
Okay, so we're going to give you time to do that, Mr. McNerney, and unless there's any objections, we will table GCQEA also, so not bring it forward for second read next month.
Copy that.
Point of order, technically it's not tabled. There's no actions made within a discussion item.
All right, fair enough. We will not bring it forward next month for second read. All right, so then that, I got to open another window here. That brings us to GDD. This is a new policy regarding support staff vacations and holidays. And this policy asks for a fill in the blank. And basically what this policy says is that all classified employees are entitled to 10 vacation days per year for the first 9 years, and 15 days of vacation every year thereafter. And then it asks us to fill in fill in the blank. So personnel with the title blank gets 15 days for the first 9 years and 20 thereafter. And a personnel with the title of blank shall be entitled to 20 days of vacation each contract year. Thoughts and discussions on that, please.
From an HR standpoint, it should be the same across the board, regardless of position. Just my 2 cents on that. I don't care what your position is. If you put in the time and you've accrued the time, you deserve the time.
So you think it basically should read, all classified employees are entitled 10 vacation days each year for the first 9 years and 15 days thereafter.
Right. I mean, I guess I say regardless of title. Now I get that might fall into under, recruitment and perks and so on, but that's where you get those muddied waters.
I'd concur with Mr. Ricks.
I concur also. I think that's the best way to do it.
Mrs. Combs?
I agree. Is that what it currently is as well?
Well, and see, that's what I was gonna ask Mr. McNerney is, how do we do this now? Because if we do offer certain individuals additional days based on their title, manager, director, or whatever, I certainly don't want to like undo that, revoke that. I want to grandfather it in, if you will.
And that's what I would suggest. Para is the leader with that right now. And so that's where I would say precedent has been set. And if we invoke this policy, as long as it's fiscal year, then we're okay. But the grandfathering, to relay the sentiment of the board is I don't want to hurt anybody for change of policy. If they've had it, we grandfather it. That would be my opinion.
Okay, so does anybody object to us moving this forward with a grandfather clause? And then making it effective at the fiscal year boundary? Also, Tim, I would really like to know how many people this affects. So if you get with Pat and get that number for me.
Can do.
Is this one
agree.
also references how much time they can carry over? No, it isn't. I'm sorry. It's step further down.
Yeah, because I think technically by law, we have to grandfather in since it's already part of the current contract.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And also there's a fill in the blank here that says to list the paid holidays that they get.
Since
So
we don't
we
have
need to-
school on Mondays, do they get those holidays paid?
Yeah,
Like
that's a
currently?
good question.
Isn't it eight paid holidays,
It is
whether
8.
it's on Monday or not?
Okay.
It is 8.
So Mr. McNerney, if you could list those holidays for us, or give me that list and I'll redline this policy for next month.
I like.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then we're gonna bring GDD forward next month with the changes that we discussed for second read. All right, so then that brings us to DBD. This is one of those policies that we tabled at the last policy review and never brought back. And what this talks about is there's three, really there's just two fill in the blank sections. And I filled in the blanks based on my recollection. So if somebody has any different feelings, please feel free. If you have different recollection, please feel free. But the first one is the amount of district resources that shall be allocated to instruction. If I remember correctly, we agreed on 80%, but we never did bring that policy back. And then at the end, we have to specify a percent operating reserve and a date by which that operating reserve has to be achieved. And my recollection was 5%. And hold on, I got a Q&A here. Mr. McNerney, Miss Ibarra would like to know what holidays they're supposed to be getting paid for.
It's in the handbook.
Miss Ibarra, it's in the handbook.
Correct.
All right. And then, you know, based on where we are with the budget and everything, I filled in the date of 2025. So please, discussion, thoughts.
I believe you are correct on the 80%. That does sound correct.
Okay, Mr. Tim's giving me north south.
And the 5% Tabor, I believe that is correct as well.
So do we all agree that 2025 is a realistic time frame to attempt to achieve that 5% on top of Tabor?
I believe so.
Tim, I'd really like to get a call from Pat on that.
A good idea.
She and I have been discussing this since last July, actually. So if you want to elevate her, that's fine, but I think she'll concur. We're going to hit that beforehand, but that would be a safe date, given variances of economy that we can't predict. So I think Pat would, and I don't know, Pat, are you in the chat? No, but
Yes, she was just elevated. So Pat, please unmute yourself and go for it.
Sorry, I got dumped off and had to rejoin to the process here. So we're asking if 2025 is a reasonable amount of time in order to get that additional 5%.
at
And
5%
over Tabor.
Over Tabor.
Over Tabor. And Tim and I have talked about this, and our goal is to do it before then. But based on the fact that, you know, when COVID hit, we had no idea what it was going to do to us.
Right.
So yes, 2025 is absolutely reasonable. Tim and I have a goal to have it done before then.
So, but if we write this in the policy, that makes it a requirement, not a goal.
Right.
And I don't want to overly constrain our budget activities and our expenditures. So should we leave it at 2025? And then,
I would leave it at 2025.
okay. So if you get there before then, well, then you get a
Kudos
big pat on the
to us.
back and kudos and a great evaluation.
Question on that 2025. Is this also assuming the worst, let's just, in COVID-19 situation or financial circumstances, could we still, if we had to carry out in this type of economy that we have now, still make that 2025?
Yeah, that's what I'm worried about. Especially considering, I'm sorry, Pat, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
Well,
especially considering the state has already told us to be prepared for a 15% budget cut.
Correct. When you say 2025, are you talking about 24-25 fiscal year or 25-26 fiscal year? Because I think we need to look at it as a fiscal year rather than 2025.
You tell me what's more realistic.
I would look at it as a fiscal year of 25-26 because
Okay.
that covers, you know, the end of December through 25.
Beginning or end?
and
And
End. Okay. Then that's an easy red line. By the end of the 2025-2026 fiscal year. All right. That red line's in the document. So is everybody kosher with that one? All right. So then we'll bring it forward next month for second read with those changes unless there are any objections. Okay. Hearing none, we move on. Next one is EEAA. Okay, so to me, this is a big kicker. So if you remember, we had significant discussion over this one. And basically what I believe that we agreed to is, regardless of your grade, if you get a kid to a bus stop, we will transport them. Which essentially makes the insert distance here moot. And then we also talk about how much time max in a day we want our students to be on district transportation. And I believe we agreed on, 2 hours. That's my recollection. So 1 hour each way max. Now here's the kicker. For whatever reasons, CASB has seen fit to remove this from their core policy manual and does not consider it a necessary or relevant policy anymore. Now, that doesn't stop us from having it. It's just for whatever legal reason, they just don't feel that it's necessary anymore. So really the two questions, three, depending on how you look at it, are, do we still want this policy? And if we do, what are the numbers and the fill-in?
Well, we got two of them that are on there for 80 minutes. And this policy was brought up by Dwight because he felt, and I agree with him, that all kids should have the right to ride the bus if we get them to the bus stop.
So we can modify that first paragraph to say that all students that board the bus at an authorized bus stop will be transported to school regardless of where they live. And I have no problem with that. So then, Ed, you said there's students that sometimes ride the bus 80 minutes each way.
Two elementary students right now ride the bus for 80 minutes one way.
An hour and 20 minutes.
Yep.
Wow. And there's nothing we can do from a transportation perspective.
Only two want to pick up one of mine. No, there's no way. First one on the bus, the first two on the bus actually, and then you got to finish the route and then go over to the elementary school. There's no way we can get around it. There's none. We've looked, I've even looked at it before when I ran the route, and no way, it can't be done.
I know from personal experience, my daughter used to be the first one picked up on the bus, and by taking her to the PPIR bus stop myself every morning, she gets an extra 30 minutes time because she was the first one here in Midway, and then they go over to the elementary side, the west side of the highway, and that would take about 30 minutes. So we save an extra 30 minutes in the morning just by taking her to PPIR. So I don't know if maybe make designated bus stops, but then I don't know if that even matters either, because I know that that's what they do over there in Midway. It's just closer to the parents' home. So I'm not sure if there is a way to fix it.
It's not the bus stops. It's the distance we're having to go to pick them up and then go all the way back down, picking up each child on the way to
switch the bus
elementary
stop
school.
to a closer one?
Sure. No, there is no bus stop. You could make every child come to the high school here, all elementary student, and then we could bus them from there. That's the only way to get away from that. But no.
As if they went to the elementary and bus from the elementary. Is that what you're saying?
Bus from the high school to the elementary. That is the only way you're going to get away from that. Because
so they come from the Hanover side to Midway.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Which road is that they're on, Ed? Is that Powers or Milne?
Myers all the way out to Deering. We pick up two young men out there, well, one girl.
Okay, so that's east of the high school.
Way
east. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now mine's not on there for a full hour and 20 minutes, but awful close.
Okay.
And I just have nothing on that point, but I have something as far as if they can go to any bus stop to get picked up or get on the bus, can they get dropped off at any bus stop?
I think that's separate from this policy.
Okay.
But I think the current transportation regulations, rules, whatever, are no.
Okay. That's what I was told.
Well, yeah, we have to have a pass to get off at a different bus stop than where you get on at.
So they can get on at any, but get off at the same.
Right,
Correct.
unless they have a pass. If they have a pass, they can get off wherever, because then it has to be approved by mom and dad or guardian. and one of the secretaries or whatever you want to call them signs it and gives a pass to the bus driver.
So my concern with this policy when it came about is at that point in time, there was no elementary bus stop in Midway. If you were a kid or Villa Casitas area, any part of not just any part of west of the interstate, south of the dump. So if you were south of the dump, no matter where you lived, you had to drive your student to school. At one point in time, they stopped using the bus stop at the corner of Boca and Indian Village south of the dump for elementary students. I don't know if they've started using that again, but that's my biggest concern is as we look at, how we bus students, there should be some equity there. And if somebody that lives 2 miles from the school on Milne gets picked up and brought in, then an elementary student definitely should be able to get a ride. And parents were taking their kids to that bus stop. It's covered. It's a good bus stop. And
That's
I would
exactly
hope we're
why
using
you
it.
brought it up. And it was a very good idea. But as of right now, no elementary student over in that area uses the bus.
Well, that's because for 3 years they haven't been allowed to.
Yeah, but it's there. We got it open for them, but nobody's chose to use it.
Okay, so the bus driver does stop there now at elementary level?
Yes.
That's good to know. And it's a quick and easy stop right on the way to the elementary school. In my mind, I could be
And are
way
the
off.
parents aware that that's an option?
That I don't know.
Well,
I
Ed,
take that
you
back.
have.
I'm sorry. I'm just being told by
Oh, I was just.
Chuck Dusling that yes, when the parents sign up for where they go to school, they are told about that bus stop.
So is there anything that we could add to, let's say, the website just for busing and list all of the options on there? And there's really not much, I mean, the system's not broken, but maybe just a lack of communication of saying, hey, this is where our stops are. If your students are here this time, they will have a ride to school. Thoughts?
I think if we do the website thing, I think we could get rid of this policy altogether.
Well,
That's my.
But now, there's only one reason, okay, that I think we need to consider having this policy, and that is, we as a board, we've made our feelings known here about what we want, but that isn't binding, okay? So if for whatever reason, the director of transportation or the superintendent want to cut or change the way they've been doing things, there's nothing that we have to hold their feet to the fire to do what we want unless we have this policy. Other than maybe give them a bad eval or something.
So I think that we should totally tailor this policy to our own need and just have some verbiage, just as we've talked about. There's designated bus stops. Drop your child off at the designated bus stop. They'll be provided transportation. They'll be brought back to that bus stop in the afternoon. And you're very correct. And I was going to say something about that. If it's not in policy, it could stop the next day.
Right. And so, I think our transportation department has been doing a great job. And I think based on the conversation we had a couple of years ago regarding this, they have been doing basically what we said we wanted to do. But that doesn't make it binding. And the only way we have binding is policy. So my thoughts are, since Mr. Smith has such a keenful insight on this, is for him to propose a heavily tailored policy that we bring forward next month for second read.
And we could add on there as part of that policy that it will be communicated via the webpage of where said sites of pickup and drop off are. Just that way it's up to date.
We can manage that.
Because I mean, if we have families moving in all the time, and if they have access to that information, hey, here's a quick link. Hey, now I know where I can drop my kids off.
I'm certainly fine with that.
And then also, since we're kind of talking about this, I'll specifically speak to this one because I'm tasked with it, but I'll have this out and in the shared drive for you board members to review within 10 days. So by all means, get in there and start looking at that folder early so that you can have some input to these. And that's the goal, is we're going to have policies out there early so we can have plenty of opportunity and plenty of time to review these policies, because there's a lot coming up and it takes all of us to do our part.
And yeah, we'll talk about the sheer numbers of policies that are up for review next month. In a later discussion on it. All right, so that brings us, unless there's anything else on this policy. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to EFE1. So this policy talks about student meal accounts. And the CASB Core Policy Manual asks us to fill in a blank about how much money the students can charge per school year before they are no longer permitted to charge meals. And I think based on our discussion when this was tabled a couple years ago, that we don't want to set a monetary limit. We don't want to cut off our students at all. But then later on, it talks about the actions that we'll take in a specific sequence in dealing with delinquent meal charges. And, we get to tailor that part however we want. And, we talked about some good things. I listened to the audio recording of this and we talked about some good things, but we never formalized, verbiage for that part. So that's basically what we need to do. Thoughts, questions? So one of the things that was brought to my attention is that perhaps we handle those individuals who are still part of or members of the district in one way, and we handle those people who are no longer associated with the district a different way. And I think the major point of discussion with that was the amount of money before we proceed to collection. I'm not opposed to that language. And I will volunteer to draft it up. I just need to know what we all think about it.
I think if they've left the district as a student or staff member, they've left the district, and no matter what they owe, or actually I would say we need to look at what's the worthwhile. So my thought would be anything over $50, we should send them to collections if they're no longer with the district. Because
but don't you think we should probably send like a certified letter first saying, hey, you owe us this amount of money for lunches and you haven't paid it? Please pay by this date or we'll pursue collections. Should we send a certified letter first?
I think that'd be the ethical thing to do.
I mean,
they are part of the Hornet Nation. I mean, there's at least a letter. And I mean, that's, a price of a stamp and an envelope.
Now, by the time we get to this point, all right, so the food services director has already sent a letter home with the kid if it's a student, right? Or already contacted a staff member if they're still associated with the district. So, I mean, it's not that like they haven't had any communication at this point.
So the one where I want to go immediately to collections is those that are no longer students or employees, because they've already left. Now, if they're still students or employees, my thought is to go along as Mr. Ricks, as we send them a certified letter. And if they don't respond to that, then we send them to collections. But the ones that I'm thinking of going after right away are those that have left and just essentially skipped out on the bill to the district.
I got a question.
Go ahead, Ed.
A question: if Okay, I'm a teacher and I'm leaving. Do I not have to out process or whatever you want to call it with Pat and superintendent and all these people before I just walk out the door?
Well, I think you
Yeah,
do.
take it out of that final check. Take it out of that final check.
That's right. And same with the student. Student has to before he can leave. They got sign out papers. So they're going to get a letter saying you owe this amount already. I don't feel we need to send them a certified letter because they're already told they owe this money.
Okay, so that's for
Well,
staff, or are you talking for students too?
Students and staff.
Okay,
Well, I think for students, we need to be a little bit more careful because even though at the time of graduation they are an adult, we need to make sure that communication is directed to and collections are sent to the head of household, not the said student that is in the circumstances normally of what they don't have control over at the time when they were a student at the school.
Right, not the graduate. I'm talking about a fifth grader, sixth grader. Those students, if they move in.
Right. No, I agree. And I'm just saying if we extend that all out even to the graduate as well. I mean, hey, you're 18 now, now you got to owe this. Come on now. So it's got to fall under the head of household.
If I just put some policy we're invoking, just on to align with what everything's being spoken. Where I've been before is before you depart district as a staff member, it's debited out of your check. Before you leave our school district, then the enrolling school you go to does not get your cum folder until you've paid, which means you can't enroll. So we have ways of holding it. Now, the other part of that is then what if I just can't afford it? Well, then we set up a payment plan and then we can go to collection and blah, blah, blah. But we have ways. And Paul, to your note, is graduates. If you get to graduate legally, I can't keep you from graduation, but guess what? You don't get your diploma. You are legally graduated, but you don't get a walk and you don't get a diploma. And those are things that are ugly. I have rarely gone to that, but if we need to, we can. And then at that juncture, if they jump, because there's loops everywhere, but we can say, okay, next step as an 18-year-old, you are legal tender and your credit's going to get hit, and that's not fun. So that would be my 2 cents worth.
so
I like
yeah,
that.
for those of you, I'm sorry, Danielle, those of you watching the Q&A, our food services director just put in a message that said we are $13,000. She says in debt. I would say we have $13,000 of unpaid lunch bills.
That's why it was brought up. Why we
That is a ton of money.
And that's part of the reason why when Melissa was hired for this position and we discussed it, this is part of the reason why we're crunching down. We can't afford it.
And when I looked at the last list that was given to us, there were several that are no longer students or staff here.
That's what I was
have
thinking.
quite
Do we know the
lot of
total
money.
for those?
Correct.
So
Yeah.
I still would want to push back though on the student, and I know it shouldn't be a personal experience. I just know in my household growing up, second youngest of 7 kids, we had reduced or free lunch depending on whatever dad brought home. And to tell a student, say, hey, you're not going to walk the line or get your diploma, you're not going to walk with your classmates because of the financial situation that your parents are in, not you. I say let the kid walk and go to the head of household. I just think you're putting that on a 17, 18-year-old kid.
It's not
to
a very
not walk
good
with the classmates.
life as an adult.
Yeah, when I say student, I'm not meaning the student themselves. I mean the student household, which would be the head of household, that responsible adult. I just
No,
use
no,
student as
I
a
wasn't-
student account. But in your instance, I would hope that I know when I was having issues as a youngster and we had problems, we communicated that. And that's the key too. As long as the family's communicating to the school and we know their situation, I don't believe that we would ever tell somebody you can't walk. It's for those that you send the letter home, you send the registered letter home, you talk to them, and it's nothing heard, nothing heard, nothing heard. But anybody that's willing to work and communicate, I mean, I'm sure we'd even pass the hat for somebody that was really trying and doing to do something, or mow my lawn, little lawn I have, to get through that. So I'm not being naive to challenges, but when I looked at that list, I was pretty shocked at the amount that just skipped out
And
on
guys,
quite a bill.
you're all running off on the wrong area. This happened because people weren't paying their bill. Not that they couldn't, they just weren't doing so. We even seen who the bill was sent to, and the parents weren't doing it. Jasmine sent out letters to them. Melissa sent out letters to them. The parents are getting the letters. They're not paying. One family skipped the country with, I don't know, 6, 7 kids, owing us a big amount of money. That's what this was all about. That's why we brought this up.
Can we get a list of who's no longer here in O's versus who is still currently, and get that 13,000 broken down in those categories? So that way we can see if the majority of it is currently enrolled or past enrolled. For me personally, I think that would help sort of give us a better idea in which direction to maybe go, especially for the current students. Because if it's a handful for the current, then we could probably just go straight to collections for the ones that are no longer with us. And then in the future, before they even leave or hold their records or take it out of their last paycheck for the staff, we can move forward in that direction. And the ones that currently owe, that we haven't done anything with, or we haven't taken out their check, or we didn't have that policy in place, go to collections straight away for those ones and get the ball rolling on that one. But definitely, I think breaking it down
Melissa
into
just said in the
categories.
Q&A that she can do that, and she'll get that information to us.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Melissa.
Would it not be more appropriate to have it more as a number account as opposed to names? Or is that not?
Well, I think
I'm just wondering
for
legality
board
wise.
consumption, names are fine.
Okay.
But if
I just want to
that,
make sure we're good on that.
yeah, if that information leaves the board, then yeah, it would have to be sanitized.
And the key with this one is just like the bus one. If we don't put it in policy, it may not happen. And as we've discovered, we need to really be clear with our policies to give that superintendent the direction. This one to give Melissa the direction, the business manager direction. Because if it's not in our policy, they can't just arbitrarily take a teacher's last part of their last paycheck. I mean, they could
Correct.
arbitrarily
That's
do
what
it,
I'm
but I don't know
saying.
how well it would hold up.
Going forward, I think it needs to be in our policy for that. For the past ones, go to collections that aren't here no more. Like from this year forward, or this fiscal year, or next fiscal year going forward, we will hold money from the last paychecks. And then we'll even put it in the handbook as well, if needed, for parents and students, as well as staff.
And staff, yeah.
As
anyone that would like to volunteer to write the language that we're talking about here?
And the policy, the one that we have.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Thank you, sir.
And then my second question about this policy is, if they don't have the money and they owe, what are we going to do as far as a meal for them? Because in the policy, it says that they'll get a complimentary replacement meal. Would that just be the same as what everyone else is eating? Like, we need to specify.
I want to take that whole paragraph out.
Okay,
Yeah,
that was my thoughts right away as well.
No, complimentary meal is a peanut butter sandwich. No, that costs just as much or more, and it's humiliating for the little kid.
Correct.
And everybody, no, they get the same meal as everybody else.
Correct. I was going to say, if we either should specify that it's the same meal, or just take out.
That's what we talked about last time.
I think take it out.
I agree.
So let me ask this question. What number would we want? And I'm talking current students. I think we've kind of hashed out former, but how about for current? What is our threshold for when we're going to send, say, a letter out to them that's certified to really get their attention and start kind of collection process going.
I'd say
we
50 sounds pretty good as well.
How
Need to ask
often
Melissa to
does
see what's going
letters
on.
go out now to students?
Okay, we had a bunch of people talking over each other. You know,
I was just saying, how often do the notices go out now?
I think if they're unpaid, they go out monthly, don't they, Melissa? Will somebody please elevate Melissa to speak? Thank you.
Okay.
Melissa, please unmute yourself. This is a lot more efficient than you typing and us typing back. So, Melissa, did you hear Danielle's question?
Yes. Yes, I did. They go out monthly.
Okay, thank you. Then I think $50 is a reasonable amount.
Melissa, did you
Because
and South agree to that?
lower, it's better that way.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, sorry, we were talking over each other. Do you think $50 is a reasonable amount before you go above and beyond your monthly letters, or what?
Oh, absolutely, because most of the ones that we have now are well into the hundreds of dollars.
Okay.
Melissa, I did have a question for you as well. From the monthly letters, have you seen what's the efficiency on getting a return notice, any communication from any of those? Is it 0%?
Zero.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. That's what I was wondering. So I wonder if we add that into that policy of do we, I mean, I know she's doing everything she can by sending those out, but it's not working. Is there something that we have a faster action to help Melissa out and not have to be bogged down with that much paperwork, or?
Well, I mean, me personally, I'm thinking if Melissa is sitting here telling us that she sends out a letter every month and gets zero response. So basically the only response you get is when somebody happens to walk into the cafeteria and you're like, hey, did you get my letter? Like you've done to me twice.
I have not.
Yeah. So Melissa, let me ask this question. How much do lunches cost?
They breakfast is $2.10, and at this point lunch is $3.60.
All right. So if they're eating both in 10 days, they could get up to close to $50.
Yes.
All right. It's been a while since I've had a youngster in school. So, all right. So would it be, if $50 could be a 10-day realm and we look at somebody's going to be mailing these certified letters out, might we want to increase that a little bit? Because we got to look at the administrative burden that we are going to place on somebody that's going to mail these letters.
There's going to be a cost for us to initiate collections. So we got to make sure that cost benefit matches out as well.
Exactly.
Right.
And I kind of threw 200 out when I was thinking of it. And that'd be essentially, eating everything and not paying for about a month and a half. And I'm not sure what collections cost, if that would be the right number. But I can look into that.
All right, so we're going to strike that paragraph about how much they can charge before they're cut off. And Mr. Smith is going to come up with a series of steps, conditionalized and anti-grandfathering. Is that a term? Anti-grandfathering those individuals who have already left the district. And do you think that you could have that ready for us for second read next month?
Most certainly.
Okay, so if you can pass that by, once you get the draft language, Tim, Melissa, and Pat, so that they can put a sanity check against it before you say, hey, yeah, this is ready to go to print, that would be fantastic.
Most certainly.
Thank you, sir. All right, anything else on that? Okay, so that brings us to the 3 exhibits surrounding GCA. GCA is about professional staff positions, and the 3 exhibits are, hold on, I'm going to pull it up so I don't misquote it. alternative teachers, administrators, and teachers. And so what these exhibits are is CASB core policy manual sample contracts. And I have not had the time to kind of sort of bounce this against our current practice, but I think it would behoove us to either A, modify our existing practice to match these exhibits, or B, modify these exhibits to match our current practice. And I'd be really interested to hear Mr. McNerney's input on that.
I have a lot of thoughts, none of which I think right now are very well choreographed. Because I'm thinking A, of budget, I'm thinking B, of situation, I'm thinking C, of our employees. There's a ton that I'll be honest with you, I just have not had enough time to process.
Okay. But I mean, generally you agree with, we either got to pick A or B, right?
Correct.
And so what I would charter you or Ms. Patricus with is Petrikaitis. I can never say your name right, Pat. I'm sorry. I'm just going to call you Pat. Is maybe to do that comparison and see what our how our contracts differ from these CASB core policy manuals, and then you know, maybe do an analysis that says oh hey, this is new in the core policy manual, I think we should include that moving forward, or yeah, no, that's a really bad idea, let's not do that. So I think really the only thing in question here is how much time do we give you all to do that? You know, do you think you could have that done by the next meeting for second read, or should we just go ahead and push this one off and not bring it forward to second read next month until you guys are ready?
I think for me personally, because right now I am in a position of being extremely resourceful, is I'm going to go to my alliance and PPA and go to SAC, and I'm going to, why reinvent the wheel, but get some feedback on my perceptions to see if what I'm seeing is accurate or what I'm missing. So that's not going to happen for another month. SAC is, so like I said, I want to do the due diligence, what's best for everybody. But I'm just going to be very vulnerable and say to you, I don't have the answer. I know what I want to say, but I want to be correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Secretary, if you'll annotate that the 3 exhibits for GCA will not be brought forward until Mr. McNerney's ready to address that issue. We definitely got to get that sorted out before we start recommending teacher renewals and giving them new contracts. All right.
Yeah.
Until then.
I have that noted, and one thing that I'd like to say as I looked in this is there is an alternative licensure contract in here. And in the past, we haven't been as good as a district of adequately contracting all alternative teachers. And I'll just leave it at that. So now, that one I will be myself very clearly looking at, because that is a career path that I almost went down at one point. And I've just seen how unfair that we've been as a district to somebody with an alternative license. So please make sure that you include that one in your look. That one can easily be missed sometimes because we don't always have an alternative license, and it's not as common as the other 2.
Well, and again, from a system standpoint, we have none. And so that's where I speak vulnerable. I just would like to be complete.
Fair enough. We'll give you time for that. Unless there are any objections from anyone else, Mrs. Swayze, Mrs. Combs, Mr. Ricks. Any objections to that approach?
No, I agree. I think, you know, if we have an opportunity to make it right for everyone, we shouldn't rush it. Let's get it right.
Okay, Danielle did a nod. Ed, you have no video, so I'm assuming your silence is consent. Okay, then that brings us to just a couple of more people. GCD, which talks about work days, leave days. So professional staff, vacations and holidays. And this one doesn't have any categories like the support staff one did. It just says very simply, if you work this many days per year, you get this many days of leave. And I just, I think between Pat and Tim, we can get those numbers and bring this forward to second read next month. If anybody wants to talk specifics, we can certainly do that. But, I think, what do we have? 158 contact days, Tim?
156.
156. So, I would put that, maybe I'd throw that number out at 150, just, because the way things change with COVID and whatnot. And then, I would say that the second fill in the blank is whatever we're currently doing. Any thoughts, input?
I got a question out of ignorance on that. By rectifying that first one that we already went over to have it equal across the board, will this not negate this one?
I don't know, because I don't have the data, right? I mean, if I had the data, I could make that assessment. So one of the things that, and it's one of the policies that we're not talking about, because it's not fill in the blank or select an option kind of thing, is there's policy coming forward this month that talks about that the support staff shall have the same fringe benefits as the certified staff or the professional staff. And to me, that philosophy extends far beyond fringe benefits, right? And so I think that we need to level the playing field here. Whatever we offer the professional staff, whatever equitable is, right? Because some of the professional staff, they work the whole year, not just, contract days or contact with student days, right? So, maybe the number's not the same. Maybe it's more or less one way or the other. I just need to know, what we currently do, what is our practice now, and then we can talk more about whether or not it makes sense to go one way or the other.
And this policy, how it's different from the other one, for everyone, is this policy also talks about carryover. Is how much carryover are we going to allow them? And I know we have a current carryover, and the policy references you need your supervisor's permission to carry over a second year. I'd like us to strike that, and whatever our norm is, and I believe our norm is 2 years, you can carry 2 years of leave over. And in actuality, I think that's really what this policy is addressing, is truly your carryover, but it does have that blank of saying what leave you get, which is also in another policy. It is a little redundant, but the key in this one, to me, when I read it, is what is the carryover?
Yeah, and I agree with that. I'd like to take that verbiage out about your supervisor saying yes or no on your carryover.
So we want to amend this. We want to change this to read that you can accumulate 2 years worth of leave. Is there an option to accumulate more with the supervisor's permission?
I have an answer, but it's probably not really the best answer. What's your thoughts on that, Mr. Interim Superintendent? How much, in your experience of all your years of being on the other side, what do people usually carry over?
Well, where I came from in Jeffco, you had to have 200 hours before you were even considered for carryover and payout. But that's a much different ball of wax. Part of the buy-in to it, as everybody knows, is with that is we're trying to keep retention of staff. And if we say 2 years is before you get buyout, so to speak, poor language.
Well, we're not talking about buyout here.
No,
we're just talking
carryover.
about accrual.
Right. Even if you get accrual, part of the dividend with that is, I mean, it's small, but it's enough to say, do you want to stay for an extra year? We know statistically after 3, you'll make a decision if you're going to stay another 3 or not. And that's our goal, is to go for 3. If we get you to 2 and you get to accumulate and keep accrual, that may keep an extra 2, 3, 4, 5 people, which is what we want. It's leverage, and I don't like using that. But if it's enough to say, would you like to go to D11 or stay at Hanover? Maybe.
And see, I look at it from a little different perspective. Is I look at only allowing 2 years to essentially encourage our staff to take leave, because so often people don't take leave and they really should.
Yep.
And if I was an employee and I had, say, 22 days and I knew I could only have 20 at the end of the year, I'd be looking for an opportunity to take those 2 days. And odds are I probably should have taken those 2 days. And work-life balance is very important to me. And for me, this is one way to kind of encourage that. Be it, sometimes in the environment we're in, it's not always practical, but I believe it should be.
I agree.
As an employer.
I absolutely agree.
Okay. So I'm going to ask to split these. So Tim, if you would get us the data for the first two fill in the blank things.
On GCD, right?
Correct, sir.
Got it.
Just what our current practice is. Okay.
Yep.
And then who would like to write the verbiage for the second paragraph? Board member wise. I'd like to see someone volunteer besides Mr. Smith. He's taken on a few. I've done all the work on all these policies. Danielle, I see you clicking around in that document.
I'll do it.
All right.
I'll just reference back to the notes on what we talked about, but I'll do it.
Cool. All right. And then the last one that has fill in the blanks and whatnot is GCOR. And so our original policy said basically administrators will be evaluated annually. And CASB recommends, it says administrators in their first however many years of service will be evaluated, fill in the blank, and all administrators will be evaluated at least blank. I'm fine with keeping it annually for everyone if that's the consensus. I just noticed lots of red lines when we compared it to CASB, and I just want to make sure he was on board with that. Tim, what do you think? Administrators evaluated annually regardless of years of service?
Correct.
Okay. Any other board members? I see Tim. I'm sorry. I see Paul going north-south.
I like annually.
Ed, Dwight, thoughts?
I agree. Annually.
Yeah, I agree annually, because I think everybody should be annually evaluated so that we don't encourage complacency.
Okay.
Well, and not to mention, we owe it to them to give them the evaluation so they know how we feel about their performance. I mean, it's a good thing to do for morale.
And
Feedback.
especially since we want to adopt the growth mindset. You know, if you don't get the feedback, how are you supposed to grow?
I wouldn't add on that line, Paul and Danielle, as an administrator, I look forward to it. May not always be great, but how do I know how to get better if I'm not getting it? So I
absolutely. And that's the part that bothers me. If we say, hey, if you're a principal for 3 years, we're only going to evaluate you once. I think that is so wrong. Now, maybe we want to say in your first 3 years as an administrator, you get evaluated twice a year to further reinforce that. Thoughts?
Negative. Annually.
Yeah, annually. I mean, if we see something that we need to talk to him about, that's a different story, but annually.
Because you
Okay.
meet with them regularly anyways, so they're constantly getting the feedback. So that gives you an opportunity then the whole year to implement what they're getting in your breakout sessions, essentially, that you have.
Bingo.
But the documented for your personnel file, performance evaluation is annual.
I'm totally fine with that. I was just throwing something on the wall and see what's going to stay.
No, we align to CD standards, and if you're gonna go opposite of that, I think you're creating more work. And it's not, I think, Paul, your statement, and Danielle, it's not fair. I want feedback. And part of the CDE model is mid-year, and it isn't official, but it is mid-year. I want the feedback, so
Right.
that's what I would encourage.
Well, and I'm not necessarily opposed to asking the superintendent to do more work, do more evaluations in a year, if we feel it's going to be a benefit. And so if you're saying the informal, day-to-day, week-to-week kind of interactions and feedback meet that need, then I'm certainly not of the mindset that we need to do it more than once a year.
Yeah, well, Mr. Mick is in those classrooms more than you would suspect. I mean, he's constantly walking around talking to the teachers, seeing what's going on. Either
Right.
that
See,
or
policy's got to not be about people, right? It's got to be
about everybody.
right.
But
It's got to
yeah,
be about
whoever-
position, and we could
Exactly.
very well in our search get a relatively hands-off superintendent inadvertently, and there would be administrators. Remember, this is just about how often administrators get evaluated, not teachers, right? So we could get inadvertently a hands-off superintendent that.
I thought it's also what we would like our superintendent to evaluate teachers and others.
Nope. That is codified in CRS. Teachers shall be evaluated annually, and there's a pretty strong rubric in the law about how that's structured. This is not about teachers. This is about administrators.
How we're gonna do the superintendent.
That's a contractual thing, not covered by this policy. This is really only for principals or assistant principals or deans or stuff like that.
But they're talking to them every day. Every day, the superintendent should be talking to them. Every day.
I don't disagree.
I don't see
So,
how it would be beneficial to go more than one. I don't.
Okay, that's fine.
That's just me.
I can get on board with that. Okay, anything else on GCOR? All right. So there are some roughly 40 other policies that we have up for review, adopt, rescind, or change. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns about any of the others? I just picked these out to target because I knew they were fill in the blank and whatnot. Okay, so unless there's any other further discussion on the remaining policies, we're going to move them all forward for second read next month, barring the ones that we've annotated for delay. Okay.
Thank you. Sounds good to me.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. So that brings us to 8.2, 2021-2022 budget preparations. Staff requirements and affordability. So basically we put the superintendent search on hold because current revenue projections for next year indicate we probably won't be able to afford a single role superintendent. At the same time, Mr. McNerney has said we need to hire 4 teachers. So we need to talk about that, and we need to prioritize that so Pat and Tim can put the budget together for next year. Thoughts? So before anybody chimes in, Tim, if you would elaborate to us, what are the 4 teacher positions you believe need to be hired?
Excuse me. Yes, we have high school science. We have a middle school, and as long as I'm in this position, when I came here, I said, our entire middle school is 2 teachers. Are you kidding me? We have no electives. We have no advanced placement. We have no acceleration. So I want to get an additional teacher into the middle school. And eventually the goal is to get that to 4 teachers, comprehensive school, whole child concept. So a middle school teacher, we have our English language arts, we just hired, science teacher, and then the elementary school has 1st and 3rd that they will need to hire. Now, what is not included, President Underwood, is the district spent almost $50,000 on a STEAM program, and that has been abandoned this year due to financial crisis. I would like to get that back. I'm not going to walk away from that. We let go of 11 electives because of our teachers departing. We can't do that. The kids were digging it. And again, whole child career cluster model, I can go down the whole path, but immediate need is 4, but if I have my way, we need 5.
Okay. So at the same time, this is where I'm going to elaborate on Tim's discussion. We know that our assistant principal is leaving. And when we did the initial analysis to determine if we could afford a full-time superintendent, one of the things that we agreed upon was that the assistant principal was not going to be replaced in kind, but will be replaced with a dean of students. So do we think that still holds?
No, I think a dean of students is a waste.
Yeah, I thought we went with we needed a assistant principal. That's the structure that McNerney wanted to keep. Well, and he thinks it's best for the school district that we have.
Yeah,
Whether he gets to be superintendent or not, he believes that that's the best structure that we should keep in place, and that we were going to possibly look for another dual role principal, assistant principal / athletic director, AD. Yeah. That was my understanding, is that we were looking to keep that structure whole.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Please correct me if I am.
So, well, that's all right. We're kind of sort of going to agree with the way forward. Well, what we're going to agree to tonight is kind of sort of straw man structure with priorities. Okay. So that when Tim and Pat go to put the budget together, they'll rack and stack these, and whatever we can't afford falls off the plate, right? So I think this is my personal opinion. Please, somebody interject if you think that I'm leaving the reservation here. So priority number 1, I think, is the 4 teachers that Tim talked about: high school science, an additional middle school teacher, PHE 1st and 3rd, and Tim, will let you rack and stack that. So are you saying, I guess, question, that we don't have teachers for 1st and 3rd grade now? This is being done by pairs or something?
No. And I'm just speaking with Michelle, and I appreciate it. I misspoke. Miss Dunn is doing 3rd grade, and she has not announced retire. So please, if Rebecca is on here, we have not. She's still got her job. Please, I misspoke.
Okay, so we'll replace in kind, so it's not a new teacher position.
So 1st grade, we do have paraeducator. Amber's doing wonderful, incredible work. She's working on her degree, but as it is, tentatively, depending on what Miss Dunn does. If she retires, then 2. If she doesn't, then 1.
Okay. And then, so the kind of sort of to tie back to the previous discussion, sounds like perhaps the PHE first grade position would be ripe for an alternative teacher contract.
Yes,
So if that comes to fruition, then we're really, and the current third grade teacher does not retire, that really only puts us at 2 new teachers.
or 3.
You're
If
still
I-
talking STEAM. I haven't got to
I am.
STEAM.
Yeah, I am. 2,
Okay.
or well, 3, if I get my middle school.
Okay. So
We're
we're
gonna
talking
get a language teacher. We're
science.
gonna get a teacher to teach language instead of making the kids do it online, which is they're struggling with.
And so, Ed, you bring about a good point. That's part of what I'm infusing with our high school hire, because they're by contract five classes. But like Mr. Gilbreth did, he taught 1 language that I'm not going to hire an entire teacher for 1 class. When we go to post, we will include a Spanish or some relevant language infused with that position. But good point.
Okay. So we're talking high school science teacher, an additional middle school teacher,
Correct.
and then some pathway to a PHE first grade teacher.
Correct.
And depending on, but again, so if the current third grade teacher retires, that's not really hiring a new teacher. That's replacing in kind. So we're not adding to the staff.
Correct.
Okay.
We
And
had
there's
a question real quick.
Sure.
From
Ed?
Nancy Jackson. She just
Oh.
put in the Q&A, what about music? If Mrs. Dunn, will she still teach both? And what happens if she retires? Will you do the same with the language? If Mrs. Dunn does retire, will you look for someone who will fill the third grade as well as possibly be a music teacher? Or will we do away with music there, or?
No. We would never do away with music.
Okay.
Yeah, I am whole child. I was
we'll
brought here
figure
to-
out a way to deliver it.
Okay, does that answer your question, Ms. Jackson?
And then she's also got another question. Would Miss Ibarra have the opportunity to teach first grade again? That's a low level personnel thing that I don't think the board needs to get involved in. I think if we can make the alternative teacher thing work with her, I don't know what the constraints are, then we would probably head down that path. But again, the board doesn't get to decide. That's an internal personnel decision between Mrs. Cheeseman and Mr. McNerney and the teachers in question.
Correct.
So really, we're not adding to the staff so much other than high school science and middle school. All right. So that to me is priority 1. And also included in that is the resolution of whatever you need to do for first grade. Then me personally, I think priority 2 should be Prairie Heights principal, junior, senior high school principal. Priority 3 should be junior, senior high school AP. If we can't afford a full AP salary, then we may have to go down to dean. And then priority 4 obviously would be full-time superintendent. And if we can't afford a full-time superintendent, figuring out how we're going to do all that. Those are my thoughts, and I was just scribbling down on a piece of paper as we were talking through it. Thoughts?
The only thought that I have is if we have to go down the route of a dual role superintendent, however the budget shakes out, would it be more likely and would it be better structurally to go with an assistant principal at that point? Because we're going to be possibly saving money doing a dual role if needed.
Yeah, so I'm totally with you there, and maybe we shouldn't categorize it as 3 and 4. Maybe it's 3A, 3B. Makes sense. Paul, you were chiming in.
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's imperative to, especially if we did end up having to go the route of dual role, to have another administrator as the assistant principal and not go the route of the dean of students. Personally.
So then we are all of the mind, I'm guessing here, that we would not consider dual role PHE principal superintendent. Just because we like where we're at PHE. The only thing.
Yeah,
we
leave that
consider is-
alone over there. I think it's good over there. We don't want to bother it.
No,
Okay.
it's going great over there. So I would definitely say dual role would be superintendent, high school principal.
Okay.
Exactly.
Stay the same.
Okay.
He's doing an
So
amazing
if-
job.
So the way that we're leaning is full-time PhD principal, full-time junior senior high school assistant principal, full-time junior senior high school principal, and potentially dual role that last one with superintendent.
Right. And if we have to, we can make the assistant principal be AD also, if we can't get somebody else to do it.
Yeah, that's that's a separate argument. The AD money is a
I
pretty
agree. It's a stipend and it's separate, but
right.
yeah.
And then so what I would say is
Do
if
that.
all that falls out, I'm sorry, Danielle, go ahead.
I said a teacher might want to step up and do the AD role as well. Like I know we've done that in the past. So the AD option is sort of flexible. As
I
far as-
totally agree with you, Danielle, but I've already asked them all and they're all arguing and don't want it.
Okay, well then I see. I didn't know you were on top of it, Mr. Swayze.
Maybe that's something Ed could pick up.
No.
So then Tim, and the way I see this is assuming all of that stuff pans out the way that we just discussed, if we can afford a STEAM teacher, there's your STEAM teacher after all of that. What do you think?
Very good.
I definitely think having a STEAM teacher, it needs to be a priority because that program does wonders, and especially with the tech world we're in now, the students I definitely think would thrive and definitely have a good advantage if we did that.
And with the dual rolling, the superintendent, we might be able to afford a STEAM teacher. I don't know. We just got to see how the projections pan out with state revenue based on the School Finance Act that's going to be dropped here in a little bit. So, all right. So Tim, does that give you adequate feelings as to what the board feels with respect to staffing for next year and how to put together your budget?
It does. I just need to be very, very clear with everybody. This is me talking. I have not talked with Ms. Cheeseman yet about any of this. This is me. I have not consolidated, collaborated anything. This is all me talking. So when I get with her, she will tell me what she needs and we will go. But that's my subjectivity right now on assessment. I have not even talked with Ms. Cheeseman about this yet.
Okay. Yeah, but basically, in the end, we're not really adding to the staff. So we're, other than high school science and middle school teacher.
Correct.
We're going to have a third grade teacher, regardless of how that goes. And we're going to have a first grade teacher. And those are already positions that we have. So we're really just adding 2 staff members, figuring out the structure of the admin, and maybe if we can afford it, adding a STEAM teacher.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Anything else on that? And, I would love to, ask the board to move forward with dual role and reinitialize the superintendent search committee activities. But I still feel that's premature based on current budget projections.
I agree.
I agree.
That's why it's not on the agenda, because I figured you all agreed. Okay, anything else on staff requirements and affordability for next budget year? Okay, so that brings us to 8.3, 2019-2020 annual audit update status. I know the audit has completed. I would just kind of sort of like an idea of when we expect the auditor to have his report ready to brief us.
We should, and I don't know, Pat, if you're available, if I misspeak, but we should be able to present, we're hoping by March board meeting. Pat, is that accurate?
I believe that that is accurate. Are we going to ask the auditor to present?
I would like to.
Okay, I just need to, let him know, the board needs to let him know that that's what our preference is.
And another thing kind of sort of related to the audit is that, when I was talking to Pat earlier this month about the audit, one of the things that she brought up is that, the auditor really works for the board, and hence the district, and that we need to structure that that more along the lines of the board taking care of it, as opposed to the administration taking care of it. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but I'm sure we could figure it out. If everybody believes that that's something we should do. We'll have to make sure that, the audit is accounted for in the budget. And then once the budget's approved, then we can, as a board, engage the auditor with, a letter or whatnot, however it needs to work. Any other questions about the last year's audit or next year's? Okay. So that brings us to SCAP site visit, which I think is kind of a OBE based on Tim's update. But if anybody would like to add anything or ask questions, please feel free. Okay. It brings us to 8.5 superintendent search update. I think we pretty much covered this. I put it in here just in case the board had an inclination that they wanted to continue or move forward with the superintendent search. Anything else anybody wants to add on superintendent update? Superintendent search committee. Sir.
Hey, Randy, I don't know if it's feasible to go back one. I believe Mr. McNerney, did you say that you wanted to expound more on the SCAP visit today? I thought that's what you said at the beginning. I may be wrong.
No, what I'm waiting for, Paul, is we're going to get feedback compiled. We did a summative today, just real quick. We'll get much more detail that I'll present at the March.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, cool. Thank you.
That's what I thought I heard him say.
My apologies.
Okay. No worries.
You're good.
All right. Anything else on superintendent search committee? All right. We're in the home stretch now, folks. I know it's been a long one. We're pushing 2 hours. We do have an executive session after the information updates, but I have a feeling it'll be a short one. I hope everybody, all board members and Mr. McNerney, you have the link for that. I sent it out earlier today. All right, that brings us to 9.1, temporary rule approval, first read, regulation BGR2, policy review and update process. Do I have a motion to approve BGR2?
I'll make a
I'll
motion
move to approve BGR2.
Mrs.
I'll
Combs, beat you there, Mr. Smith. All right.
All right, so I'll second it.
All right, thank you. So what we did last month was we modified BG that said we were going to make sure that we update policies more frequently than we have been. And what I've done is drafted a regulation to that effect and kind of sort of specified the mechanics and the process of how we're going to do that. I'm assuming everyone's read through it. Are there any questions, concerns, comments? None?
It looked good.
Gotta let the dog out of the room. Apparently she needed to go outside. All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye, motion carries. BGR2 is approved. All right, so that brings us to 9.2, temporary approval first read, Exhibit GDBAE, support staff salary schedules. Do I have a motion to approve GDBAE?
Also move to approve GDBAE.
Sir, do I have a second?
I'll second.
I think Danielle beat you. All right. So basically, for those of you that are listening, the state of Colorado has raised their minimum wage, and we are changing our support staff salary schedule to match that. Making it, we don't really have to make it retroactive, because the way the pay cycles worked out and Pat's already taken care of it. So this is just kind of a rubber stamp kind of thing. Questions, concerns, comments, input, discussion. All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. GDBAE is approved. All right, so that brings us to 9.3, review policy GASP and its associated exhibit, armed staff. Do I have a motion to approve GASP and GASPE?
I'll make a motion to approve GASP and GASPE.
Thank you, ma'am. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. So there are no changes here. This is just, I wanted the board to take the opportunity to review this policy that was rather controversial during its passing. And, you know, if you had any thoughts on it, if you have any recommended changes, anything like that. This is just simply a review. It's recodifying the policy. Questions, comments, concerns, discussion. All right, hearing none, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. GSP and GSPE are approved. That brings us to 9.4, website hosting migrations due to what security issues. Do I have a motion to approve 9.4?
I'll motion to approve.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. So, you know, partly because of the lack of security, I don't know how deep I want to get into this. So, currently our website is hosted by BOCES, and it is not on their list of things to do to update the underlying software that it rides on. Therefore, we can't update certain parts of the website to be secure, and we are vulnerable. In addition, you know, like for instance, that whole thing that happened last month with somebody signing up for somebody else to speak at an open forum, we could have avoided that if we had the latest software updates for our website. We could have had a two-step verification form for signups. Additionally, we've noticed a series. Is that the right word, Tim? For over 1,000. In recent weeks, there have been 1,000, more than 1,000 attempted logons by former accounts or names of accounts that never even existed on our website. And based on the IP address that these attacks are coming from, it looks like there's some kind of malicious code or some kind of bot set up actually on the server itself. That again, we have no control over. The IT support at BOCES are not inclined to assist us. And, you know, eventually that could get to the point where we could have a denial of service. Our website could literally go down from all of these attempted logons. So for that reason, I'm recommending that we direct the superintendent and the webmaster to migrate the website hosting to a server or an internet service provider of our choosing, wherein we will also take control of the domain. Like for instance, if we want to add a subdomain, so you know how board emails have a B dot, that's technically a subdomain. We can't add or manage any of that stuff. It's all managed on the back end of the server that only BOCES has access to. So for instance, if we wanted to have a D dot subdomain for the DAC and let them have their own website and their own email space and all that fun stuff, we can't do that. And so for all of those various reasons, that's what this action item is recommending. With respect to budget, yeah, the IT budget has barely been touched this year because all the IT stuff that we've done has been under the CARES Act, or already accounted for in the BOCES IT contract. And so, yeah, it may cost us some money to do this, but it's already accounted for in the budget. There's no new additional budget that would be required for this. So that's my pitch. You know, I'm a
Got
security
two
guy in
questions.
the real world, so this is kind of near and dear to me, and that's why I brought it forward, because I got tired of seeing these problems. Ed, Mr. Swayze, sir.
Two questions. The first one is, since BOCES has it and we do our own now, are they going to reimburse us some of the money or cut the contract down a little bit?
No, they won't. But we're pretty close to the end of the contract year. By the time we get this all sorted out and figured out and transferred over, it'll only be a month or two that we're not using their services.
Okay, and then we can change it in the new contract. Okay, the second question is there going to be money that we're going to spend next year, the year after, or after that?
Looking at about $2,400-$2,500 a year for the kind of website hosting that we're talking about.
Okay, sounds good to me. Thanks.
My question is if our superintendent is different, if we hire a different superintendent, or if the website host or who is doing it right now with the superintendent, if they're not able to, what if they move on? Will anybody be able to control it or take care of it? Okay.
Yeah, so what we've done is the web, so like for instance, your email address as a board member is your name.
Yes.
What we've done is when we set up the webmaster account, that is titled webmaster. So whoever becomes webmaster, whoever is webmaster from now to eternity, is going to inherit that account and have all of the access that are associated with that account name. So,
okay. So if we
there's
look
a
for
new
another
webmaster
on the record, they'll have the qualifications for it when we appoint it.
that'll
Okay.
be part of when we, hey, we think we in 4 years might have enough money to pay a webmaster. Right. And so we put out the job, we hire them, and they will get the password to this account. They will log on, change the password. They own the account. So they have all the privileges that come along with it.
Okay.
Anything else?
Question for you on our current status. If we haven't touched that IT budget, I would like to know how much it would cost to do the forensics to find out who signed up someone else for open forum, because that's just pretty chicken.
Well, the forensics is not very, very costly, but it will take a few hours to run down. And so let's just say somebody did it from their phone. Okay. So the IP address would trace back to Verizon Wireless, for an example. Then we would have to contact Verizon, and then they would have to cooperate. You know, there's no subpoena, no, you know, whatever. I really doubt they would be willing to cooperate. But it would take several hours on the part of the BOCES IT people to get to the point to contact whoever owns the IP address and then figure out the physical address that was assigned that IP address at the time, even if they would cooperate. So I don't see it as a futile use of our, I see it as a futile use of our time. But I share your concern. So questions on the Q&A. There will be multiple people that have access to the password. It's we're not going to fall into the same trap that we fell into in the past, and standard security protocols that require that whenever someone who knows the password to an account moves on, all the passwords that they have privy to are changed. Maybe that's a good opportunity for a new policy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, to Mrs. Jackson's point, that might be ideal to put a number on that and who and what positions and so on as a policy.
Yep, I think that's a great idea. I will break out my stubby pencil and write that down as an action. Because it's not just web. So for instance, like Pat has access to any number of websites and financial accounts and bank logons and stuff, and so we should have a policy that says at least two people should have access to that, and if either one of them moves on, those passwords are changed, etc. So I'm just going to write account access policy, and I'll bring that forward. We got a lot to do in March already. I'll bring it forward in April, if that's okay with everybody. Okay, anything else on 9.4? Tim, are you fine with all this?
Yes, sir. Very good. Very good.
All right. Anything else? Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye, motion carries. All right, that brings us to 9.5, snow makeup days for 2021. Do I have a motion to approve 9.5?
I'll motion to approve.
9.5.
I heard Mr. Ricks first and then Mr. Swayze. We'll go first and second on that. Thank you, gentlemen. Mr. McNerney, this is yours.
Yeah, so ironically, it's dumping out here. But no, we're not canceling yet. We are at max and capacity. I was hoping we could hold on. When we went late start the other day, we are now officially, and that's why I changed it to action item, going to have to make up some time. So I did, as I said, make this action item. I did propose by statute, the state has the hours I did submit to you and where we are and the days that we have built in to our year for such days. But because of COVID, we did use our 6 days and our delayed starts. We are officially out of time. And so we are officially, now going to, we're going to need a Monday. So I have itemized the days, March 15, April 12, April 19, May 3, May 10. Those are all Mondays. And I did have a chance to talk to a number of kids because we were getting kids ready today. We did issue devices in case of tomorrow. I don't think that'll happen, but in case. And our systems here are good. Prairie Heights and us both. So we can go remote. I don't think a full day is what we're going to end up with unless we get something like we did a year and a half ago. But as it is right now, we are going to owe the state 2 hours. I don't think with cold and chill, we're probably going to get another couple. And so we are officially in Operation Makeup Storm. So I need the board's approval to get us going on this.
So, Mr. McNerney, we have a question from the audience, and this is Ms. Jackson. She wants to know if it only applies to junior, senior high school.
No, this is, well, yes, I apologize. It is. Prairie Heights and preschool all have, Prairie Heights still has 7 days left and preschool still has 7 days left. So no, Casey, you guys are still safe.
So have you put any thought into the possibility of, instead of having a snow day, have an online learning day.
Yeah, but officially, as of last remote late start, we are now over our barrier. Any future, like we did today with checking devices out, remote will be our status for snow day, but we're officially over because of remote on or because of late start on Tuesday. And so late starts, there's just nothing we can do with that.
Okay. All right. Board questions, comments, concerns, discussions, input.
So
A
you
question
want
for you.
every one of those days, sir?
I'm sorry, say again, Ed?
You want every one of those days approved? Is that what you're asking for?
What I'm asking for is options. So yes, if you can bless those, then what we will do is I will get busy in speaking with Mr. Williams and sports and what we got for activities and make it as least destructive as possible with community. And I haven't gotten that far yet. I haven't, to be honest with you, I've never had to do 2 hours to make up, but I know we have to be compliant. So if I have my way, Ed, we're going to have a couple of more late starts, I think. What I would like to do then is buckle them up to a full day and then call it good, instead of, because it's expensive to bus kids in and out for a Monday, and with parents, that just isn't going to fly. So that's what I just haven't gone that far yet. So
Basically what we're approving here, Tim, is a list of days that you, from which you can choose to make up the hours that you need.
Correct.
And your plan is not to use all those days, only use as many as you need based on how many other late starts we have.
Correct.
I think the 15th would be a perfect day, 15th of March, because we're out early on Thursday and Friday. So we go Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Now you're diving into operations, Ed.
No, I'm just telling you the 15th, that he picked that day. He picked that day, and I agree.
One of his optional
That's
days.
a perfect day. That's a perfect day.
That's one of the four.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I don't know the other days. I don't remember them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I have a
Go ahead,
I have
sir.
a question for you. Would it be feasible on those days, as you were talking about the cost of fuel and busing, is there a chance that we can make these days, as we approve them, as remote learning days, or is that too much of a headache? So we approve these days, we use that as a stay at home, but yet go remote on those days. Is that a possibility?
So yeah, part of the new guidelines, Paul, actually, the irony of what you're discussing is interesting. The state just came out with some guidelines on how they are accepting makeup hours, because we're not alone. A number of districts are going through this, and what qualifies remote, the option for remote. And so I'm waiting to get that finalized before, because yes, if I can do that, then we wouldn't even use buses and say, guess what? For 2 periods, we're going to go remote and still qualify it by state rubric as makeup hours. So we haven't gotten there yet because it just came out a couple of weeks ago. And I want to make sure if I do that, we're not going to get in trouble. But yes, you are true.
Okay, because I was just thinking of, the families that, you're not finding, if they're already having babysitters, so on, it wouldn't really mess up their ebb and flow. So
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else on 9.5? All right, call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. The motion carries. That brings us to 10.0 information updates. Do we have any questions, comments, concerns on information updates? Melissa, if you're still on, I don't see you. I know you wanted to talk. I think maybe what we talked about earlier covered her concern. But anything else? As always, I want to thank the people who put these updates together. They're very insightful and very much appreciated. Oh, there's Melissa. Go ahead, Melissa.
No, I'm still here. I think the only thing that we were going to talk about was the budget for the food department.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
That
So,
was all.
yeah, so we got budget preparations coming up, and as always, Mr. McNerney, the directors, department heads, whatever their titles are, managers, they need to be involved in the budget development process for their department. I know it's probably your first time putting together a district-wide budget. So just kind of sort of a note for you there, sir.
Yeah, and Melissa and I chat regularly, and I apologize, Melissa. We're trying to get numbers put together, and as soon as I do that, then we will get in the cabinet for the district put together, and then we will go to teachers, and then we'll go to DAC and go through a process. So I apologize, Alyssa. We're just getting final, and I'm hoping a latest word now is mid-March that state, we're hoping, will give us look for us for next year. And so we can get the ball rolling, but thank you.
All right, Melissa, you're good. 2 thumbs up. I only saw 1 thumb, but there we go. There's the second one. Thank you. All right, anything else for information updates? All right, that brings us to 11.0 executive session. I'd like to make a motion to move into an executive session to be conducted to discuss specialized details of security arrangements or investigations, including defenses against terrorism, both domestic and foreign, and including where disclosures of matters discussed might reveal information that could be used for the purpose of committing or avoiding prosecution for a violation of law in accordance with CRS 24.6-4024D. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, sir. Call for the vote, please, sir.
Ms. Combs,
Aye.
Mr. Ricks,
Aye.
Mr. Smith, aye. Mr. Swayze,
Aye.
Mr. Underwood.
Aye. Motion carries. We're going to move to executive session. Board assistant, please keep this meeting open, as we will have to come back to discuss other business and adjournment. All right, so the board members would leave and go to that other Zoom meeting link. We can conduct our executive session. All right, we're starting to come back in from executive session. We have Ms. Combs, Mr. Smith. All right, so on, there's Mr. Ricks. Hopefully Ed can get back in. So I have two very quick pieces of other business. Now I'm trying to remember the other one. Remember the one. Welcome back, Mr. Tim. What's the other one? You'll have to pardon me for a second. I gotta go yell. All right, my apologies. So we are back in session at 9:15 p.m. All right, other business. I have two short items of business. Number one is that the board assistant has sent all board members an email asking them to update their contact information and asking them to tell her what their preferred contact is. So for instance, me, it would be my board email. Ed, it would be his phone, etc. So we can avoid that little point of confusion that Mr. Swayze had a couple of weeks ago with the superintendent search committee. And then the second one is that we need to figure out a way, kind of sort of along the lines of the website thing. You know, when this evening, when we had to change the meeting from hybrid, in-person, virtual to 100% online, you know, it would have been nice if the district had an official Nextdoor presence and an official Facebook presence, maybe even Twitter and all that kind of fun stuff. So we need to figure out as a board what it is that we want to do in that regards, because there's lots of maybe 4 different Facebook pages out there that have the Hanover Hornets logo or Hanover Hornets in their name, and they're not official district Facebook pages. And you know, I think we should probably, you know, have an official presence for almost exactly the conditions that we had tonight.
I would say you go with your Nextdoor because you can set up your settings to get an email too.
Yeah.
With a notification. So, I mean.
Yeah, but the problem is we want to cover as much as possible. You know, not everybody's on Nextdoor and not everybody's on Facebook. So I think at least between those two, we'd probably cover the vast majority of people who need that kind of information. And also, for instance, when the Easy Blast texts go out that say, hey, yada, 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 whatever, you know, we could also send those out over our official social media presence pages. Just,
you know, I think with our rebranding effort, I think we should hit them all up: Parler, Twitter, Facebook, whatever's out there, so that we can put some of the great things we do out there also, so that people understand that we are doing things as a school and that we do great things, and especially some of the great things we have that our students accomplish. Of course, it has to be sanitized, but so much is happening that a lot of people don't know about. And if we could saturate them with knowledge via social media, I think that'd be a great thing.
And, you know, so initially I would expect that this would be another volunteer position, probably taken on by the existing webmaster until such time as we feel that we could afford a an official public information officer or whatever the title ends up being. But again, it's just a thought. There's no vote tonight, but we need to have those thoughts in our mind and ready for action. If not now or soon, then definitely at the budget year. Because if we feel that we want to move forward with a, someone is paid some stipend or something like that, that should definitely be in a budget. So just a thought. Your input, your thoughts are certainly welcome.
Brandy, just to Dwight's point that not everybody gets those easy messages, so it might be nice to have other platforms as well.
Oh yeah, but yeah, I'm totally in support of this. The only question is, to what extent we need to agree on the platforms. I just don't, based on what little I know, I don't have an Instagram account, but what little I know about it, I just don't think that would be an appropriate or necessary social media account for the district to have. If you disagree with me, that's fine. We can certainly entertain it. So we need to come together with a plan about what platforms we want to attack, and how we're going to assign that work, and whether or not it's paid. So those are just things we need to think about. I'm sure in the coming weeks, the board assistant and the webmaster will encourage me to put together a formal plan for us to vote on in the next board meeting. All right. Ma'am, go ahead.
I was talking to my husband. He opened the door. I apologize.
No worries. So it shows that on my screen anyway, Ed is still trying to connect the audio. Is there any other business?
I do have a question for Tim. Are you the only employee at the high school at this moment?
Yes, sir.
Due to the weather, and so we can get this over with, would you mind just sending us an email, just knowing that you get home safe tonight, just because of the conditions?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great idea.
And drive safely, sir. All right.
Thank you.
Any other business? All right, hearing none, that brings us to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
Thank
I'll
you, sir.
second.
Thank you, ma'am. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you for your time. Sorry for the long meeting.